You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room.
All right, I'm going to bring in a buddy of mine, Wade Smith, 12-year NFL vet, Texans Pro Bowler. Wade, we'll get into the quarterbacks and the stack. I think that the cabin fever is a little bit crazy. That's what I call it. I enjoy it. I'm not above it. I embrace it. I love it. But we've gotten to the point now where now the popular topic today was Will Anderson. Is Will Anderson worthy of a number 2 overall pick? Sean Pendergast and Seth Payne were talking about it. We'll get into the quarterbacks. But do you have questions about Will Anderson being the number 2 pick for the Texans, assuming that they aren't going to take a quarterback? And we don't have to make that assumption, but if they're not going to take a quarterback, are you anti-Will Anderson?
I think Will Anderson is going to be a solid NFL player, but when I think about him being the number 2 pick in the draft, I'm a little underwhelmed. I look at him on tape, I watch him play, and I'm not seeing him winning one-on-one battles on a consistent basis. That's what you want to see out of, a number 1, number 2 pick in the draft as a defender. So I don't see that enough. I don't see him putting offensive tackles on skates and whooping guys at the point of attack. He's a damn good football player. He makes the plays that are there for him to make. But is he a difference maker? Is he a game wrecker? I don't really see that. I know he has a lot of accolades, but when I watch him play, I don't see that. So I would be somewhat disappointed if that's what they settled on as a number 2 pick in the draft.
What about Tyree Wilson?
So Tyree Wilson, I see him picking on grown men a little bit more often, but he's still more of a, hey, I got the measurables. There's some things that I should be able to do when I make it to the level, but I don't see the production like I would want out of a number 2 pick in the draft. Like, to me, if I'm gonna pick a defensive player that high in the draft, I shouldn't have to, because the guy that I think fits the category that's a game wrecker, is whooping guys and putting them on skates and all that type of stuff, that's Jalen Carter. I think you could trade back with the Indianapolis Colts at 4 and pick up Jalen Carter. And then pick up some picks in the process, or you can trade back to 4 and pick a guy like Bijan Robinson. But I don't want to stand pat and pick either Wilson or Anderson, especially when there's quarterbacks on the board. And like you said, we're going to get to it later, but if those guys are on the board and you don't take them and instead you take an Anderson or Wilson, I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes I wonder if positional value, it kind of gets asked backwards, because on one hand, you don't want to reach for a quarterback, which is the position that people value the most. And then now you want to draft an edge guy, but you're talking about drafting edge guys that really, when you weigh out why you didn't take a quarterback, you can make the same point. It seems like what you're saying is that you can make the same point, that the reason you might not want to take these quarterbacks would be the same reason that you're not going to take these edge guys. And then you just get in a position battle pissing match, and you allow, I guess, position value with Jalen Carter on top of the questions off the field. You allow yourself to kind of shy away from that. And then the Bijan Robinson thing is kind of a polarizing topic on itself.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like this. If I'm picking that high in the draft, I want to pick a difference maker. I want to pick somebody that's a game wrecker. Like, to me, the best offensive player in the draft is Bijan Robinson. The best defensive player in the draft is Jalen Carter. Now, there's really no blemishes at all on Bijan Robinson. It's just he plays running back. He plays a position that people say you don't supposed to value that high. But to me, I'd argue and say Bijan Robinson is he's a damn good running back, but you split him out as slot receiver and wide receiver. He makes plays in that world too. So to me, he's a Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara type guy that transcends the whole idea of, hey, don't pick a running back that early. And then Jalen Carter was the best defensive player on the team in Georgia last year when Trayvon Walker was there and when Jordan Davis was there. He's the best defensive lineman. Then he's the best defensive lineman now. His film didn't drop off from one year to the next. I can't say the same thing about Will Anderson. I can't say the same thing about Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. I think those guys have measurable advantages over other guys, and there's no blemishes on their record as far as off the field stuff. They're solid pro. I think they're going to be solid pros. But number 2 pick in the draft, top 5 pick in the draft, I'm not seeing that. And so, I would much rather pick a guy that especially if I feel like the quarterback is not the guy. If I feel like the CJ Stroud is not the guy at 2, then I want to draft a difference maker. And I feel like the guys that I think are difference makers, I can trade back and get them. If you can't find a trade partner, then hey, pick Bijan Robinson at 2 or pick Jalen Carter at 2 and just be happy with that, because you know that this dude is going to be a difference maker going forward for the next 10 years.
That's always the interesting thing to me is people say you don't take running backs in the top 10. And really, I can only think of a few off the top of my head that have been drafted in the top 10 in recent years. And it's been Saquon, who's still balling, by the way. Like he was the best player on the team last year. I understand like they didn't give him a new contract, but they're willing to franchise tag him and at least talk. And Christian McCaffrey, who Carolina drafted him and then they traded him, but San Francisco was willing to trade half their draft for him.
Correct.
So it's just interesting the way we talk about running backs as if, you never get a second pick with the running back or a second contract. But let's be real, quarterback too, it's just as much of a crapshoot. My dog really fired up when you start talking about Bijan.
Well, it's definitely a quarterback because you have to give them more wiggle leeway, and their franchise killers or their franchise, they'll set you back a lot longer if you miss on a quarterback than you will if you miss on a different position. And so, I don't want that to be the reason why you say, yeah, pick the receiver or pick the running back or pick the defensive lineman over a quarterback because there's less risk. I just look at it like, hey, if there's not a head and shoulders best candidate for this spot, then pick the best guy. And to me, like head and shoulders, Jalen Carter is the best defensive player in the draft. And I feel the same thing about Bijan Robinson. Even though I'm a big Bryce Young fan, I really think he's the best quarterback in the draft. Hopefully he's there too. But if I'm just picking like, hey, who's the best guy here, then I'm going to pick Bijan Robinson over him. Now, the thing about it is if he is available, him being a quarterback does supersede the running back position, because if you get the guy that you know is going to be a damn good quarterback and you get a guy that you know is going to be a damn good running back, the quarterback is inherently just a more valuable position on an NFL roster.
You mentioned Bijan at 2. You want to talk about breaking the internet? That would absolutely break the internet. My sales pitch though, like, and I've said this, like, first of all, I need D'Amico to pitch whatever happens. I don't think Caserio is in position to where if you do something controversial, he's going to be able to sell you on it. It's just not. And I do think it should be D'Amico's vision too.
Controversial though. Let me ask you that question. What do you consider controversial that Nick Caserio could do? I'm just wondering.
Not take a quarterback, take Will Levis, something like that. Like just really anything. I think at this point, anything would be controversial. I just think selling the vision. You can make the argument that selling the vision isn't a big thing, but passing on a quarterback. I mean, John McClain's saying they got to take a quarterback. He can't even give me a damn name. And that's the path I don't want to go down. And you hear how me and McClain talk. I don't want to like this. They need to get a quarterback, and then you don't have a name for me. Like that's troubling for me. Like that's not a good mindset to have. And it's just not realistic to think that that's the thing. But I'm just think D'Amico could sell the vision that, we put a good, and he's already done it. He's already said it, but we put a good football team around quarterbacks, and it's not just about one position.
Yeah, it's definitely not just about one position, but to your earlier point, like, listen, D'Amico has to have his hands all over this draft. We all know that he's collabing and working with Nick Caserio and the rest of the staff to put this thing together, but this has to be a D'Amico Ryans guy. Like, if you're drafting a quarterback, he has to be in the image of D'Amico Ryans. You want to make sure that you guys are on the same page and you mirror each other as far as how you approach the game, the type of leadership that you bring to the table. And when I hear people talk about Will Levis, I get very discouraged. Like when I think about if this was my quarterback, how would I react to him? I get very discouraged because it's like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like it gives me vibes of like Paxton Lynch, and I'm a Memphis guy, but when Paxton Lynch put on them shades at the draft,
the bowling alley,
doing like, what are you doing? And when I see Will Levis eating bananas with the peel on them and the mayonnaise and flexing and all that type of stuff, I just get those same vibes, and so I'm trying to stay away from Will Levis any way possible.
Yeah, the Will Levis thing is interesting because the stock The stock seems like it's kind of gone up a little bit. And Reddit, there was a Reddit article today where I guess it caused the draft odds for him to be the number 1 overall pick to actually go up to where he was plus 400. I guess he's telling family members allegedly that he was going to be the number 1 pick or whatever. So
I hope he's right. I hope he's right.
Yeah, that would be great.
Have Bryce Young that they can pick at number 2, and then all of this consternation and worry and concern can be thrown out the window, and everything will be right here in Houston, Texas.
All right. So you said Will, you're out on Will. What about CJ? How you feeling about CJ?
I would take him there too. If Bryce gets picked with the number 1 overall pick, then yeah, to me the next best guy, as far as the quarterback position, is CJ Stroud, and so I look at CJ Stroud and I see that people talk about the concerns about the S2 test and there's all these things coming out last minute where, the talk about CJ Stroud when the trade was initially made with the Carolina Panthers, everybody just assumed this CJ Stroud is going to be the pick at number 1. Then based off of different conversations and things that have been thrown out there, that's changed, but his film hasn't changed since then. His height, his weight, all of these accolades that he's been able to do, none of that has changed since that point. Only thing that's changed is the conversations that have been put out there. And I have a hard time trusting the conversations that get put out there because people have agendas. It's line season. For whatever reasons, people can try to get guys to move down or move up in drafts for whatever reasons they have. So it's hard to trust all the stuff that's coming out. I just look at, hey, who is the second best quarterback in this draft? To me, it's CJ Stroud. I think Hendon Hooker's not far behind him, but I think that, it's Bryce Young, and then right behind him is CJ Stroud, and the next best quarterback is Hendon Hooker. And so if I have to choose between picking, CJ Stroud, who's a damn good quarterback that I think is going to have a hell of a career in the NFL, and picking a guy like a Jalen Carter or Bijan Robinson that positionally at number 2, you don't get quite the same amount of value as you do as getting a damn good quarterback. Give me CJ Stroud.
I'll be honest. Like, I know there's a lot of media types, and congratulations on all the S2 experts out there. I did not know what the hell the test was before 4 weeks ago. So I didn't, you know me, I'm not going to pretend that I know something if I don't know anything about an S2 test. I just know what they say the S2 test is and what it's supposed to do. That's it. Like, it's supposed to be you're reading whatever is coming your way. There's been questions about what the S2 test is and how important it is. With the questions about CJ Stroud and like the Ohio State system and how much do you really have to read and the quarterback and the receivers being open, does an S2 test, is that just kind of like, can it be like kind of a magnifier, not like an end all be all, but could it be like some sort of magnifier just because the questions are, how much, not necessarily what can a quarterback do, but how much do they have to do in this system with all this talent around them?
See, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. It's something brand new. I don't know what it is. It's some new tool that people are using, but based off of what they're saying, and there's been conflicting reports on what actually went down with it, but apparently he scored in the 18th percentile of compared to other people. He didn't score 18 on the test. That means 82% of the people that took the test did better than him. It didn't say how much better than him it did. It just said that they did better than him. So, what actually does that mean, though? And I don't think anyone can legitimately answer that question. You can't look at CJ Stroud play football and say to yourself, this is a dumb quarterback. You can't watch the tape and say that. I can watch the tape and see, okay, this dude is accurate as hell. He's got a strong arm. He gets the ball where he needs to get it. He's not throwing the ball behind receivers. He has good timing. He gets the ball out on time. Like, all the things that you want, he does. Now, I don't know what this video game, whatever. Maybe he's not good at video games. I don't know. It's not real life. At the end of the day, like, what does he do when he puts the pads on and plays football? And so people can use it as a tool. That's fine. I don't know anything about it to put any stock into it. I can just put in stock into like what I see him do on the field, and the evidence shows me that he could play quarterback at a high level. And I think some of the traits that he has will translate to the next level. And so to me, that's what you use to determine if I'm going to pick a guy or not.
So I take it that if Bijan's at 12, then it's a no-brainer for you if you're talking about him at 2.
Bro, if Bijan, he's not gonna be there at 12, so I don't even really want to talk about this. He's not getting past Philly. But if he is there at 12, I mean, sprint to the pick needs to be in with 9 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock. Like, to me, he's gonna be the best offensive football player in this draft. You're gonna look back at it and say, man, like, damn, how did he fall to 5, or how did he fall to 12, or whatever he falls to? He's just, he's that guy. Now, if the Texans mess around and take him at 2, to me, then okay, that's the proper value for him. That's the type of impact he's going to have on the NFL roster. That's just watching him play football, watching how the strength he plays with, the wiggle he plays with, the hands he plays with, the blocking, all these different traits that you need to play the position and play at a high level. They translate to the next level. So I think he's going to be one of those type of guys. I think Jalen Carter is going to be a dominant force on the inside. I see guys like the Clancy kid, or Clancy, the kid from Kalijah Clancy, the kid from Pittsburgh. I see that guy winning one-on-one matchups against offensive linemen more often than I see it out of Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson. And so Clancy's problem is he's too small, he's undersized, so they're not going to pick him.
Sounds familiar.
It sounds familiar to the other guy that's in the league that's been wrecking people forever. Had the same thought process about him, but when you watch that guy on tape, you just saw him at the Senior Bowl whooping people all the time. We're talking about Aaron Donald, if you guys didn't pick up on that, but he was whooping people at the combine. I mean, not the combine, but at the Senior Bowl, picking on grown men, picking on good football players on a consistent basis. They were on skates. They couldn't figure out a way to get them blocked. Those are the guys that you want to pick, especially high in the draft, because now you're going to get that value because they're going to consistently be doing that at the next level as well.
What did you make of the way that the season ended and dropping the ball on Bryce Young?
I mean, what do you want me to say, Landry? Like, it was a lucky ass win, bro. It was a lucky ass win. Like, they lucked their way into that win. 4th and 20, the ball goes through the DB's hands. It's unfortunate, and I don't know what you could have done in advance.
Not play Brandon Cooks.
How do you know that Brandon Cooks playing would have been the difference maker? You don't
watch the game. I saw what he did. I saw how good he was.
Somebody else couldn't have come in the game and had a better game.
No.
You don't know that.
No.
You don't know that.
Yeah.
If you sit Brandon Cooks, what are you saying?
I'm saying, hey, sir, you want to be traded. We don't want to risk you being hurt. So we're going to sit you out. And then in the offseason, we're going to trade you.
That's
How about that? Okay, go start your vacation in California.
That's what you do like week of 5 or 6 before the trade deadline, not the last game of the season. You ain't worried about him getting hurt, so you can't.
We are going to trade you. We need to evaluate these other guys. Thank you very much, Brandon. All right, bye.
So, let me ask you this question. If they did that.
I said it before the game, though. So this isn't after. I said it before the game.
If they would, I know you did, but if they did it that way, and then they still won the game, what would be the narrative? What would be the?
It would be damn. It'd be damn they lost, but they did what they could. Damn, they lost, but they did what they did. But they did what they could.
But they did what they could.
They did what they could. They controlled what they could control. And they realistically did what they could control, Like you did all you could. You got daughters, man. I'm about to have a daughter.
What does that have to do with anything?
I'm just saying, like, you want them to control what they can control. Sometimes they might come up short, but you control what you can control. Honey, you lost your volleyball game, but you know what? You went to bed the night before. You had a very healthy breakfast. You didn't stay up till 2 a.m. You did everything you could control. Right. Brandon Cooks is basically staying up till 2 a.m.
But it's a reverse ideology the way you're doing it, because what that preparation that the girls are doing before the game, they're doing everything they can to win the game, not doing everything they can to lose the game.
That's because there's no reward for losing the game. There's a reward for losing the game in this situation.
I mean, there is. That's a reward, but you don't.
Hey,
you don't.
What does Nick Caserio always tell me? Process over results. This process sucked. I've been giving him the process over the results benefit of the doubt, and he effed me with it.
All I know is this, and I'm going to put it this way. You'll be absolutely right with your take if Nick Caserio had an opportunity to trade up the one with all his draft capital he had, and because he played, that's what people are saying. We don't know.
No. But
I think
names.
the way
There's
that
names to it. But
I,
it ain't like a report. That's specific names. And Fitterer said it yesterday on Shafters.
listen, the way that we know that this is the truth or not, I believe, is if at number 2 they do not draft a quarterback. That tells me that okay, they were trying to get the number 1 pick, and they did not give what it was needed to go get the guy they wanted to get. If they pick a quarterback at number 2, that tells me that I don't agree that it tells me that they're settling. I think that tells me that they knew that one of those 2 guys was what they wanted anyway. So they weren't going to be willing to give up the house to get the guy that they, instead of getting the A+ guy, they got the A- guy. I ain't mad at A- guy. To me, that's not settling.
I am.
You'll be mad at the A- guy. That makes no sense.
Yeah. No, I want the top dog, man. I want the top dog. There's been 10 franchise quarterbacks, 10 franchise quarterbacks selected in the top 5 the last 20 years. 7 are number 1 overall picks.
That's great. But there's probably a bunch of guys that weren't the number 1 overall pick that are better than some of those guys. So that matter what you're evaluated at coming into the draft. Like I'm sure that the San Francisco 49ers would have rather drafted me instead of Quayne Harris. But what does that mean? Like, he was the top guy, right? But he doesn't mean he's going to end up being the top guy. And so that's the same thing with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Like, if these guys are 1A and 1B, draft 1B. You'll be fine with that.
Or just control to where you don't have to do 1B. That would be
control it because there's
like what the Bears did,
There's human beings playing the games.
Hey, Justin Fields, sit out. Okay. Oh, we're benching guys at half. Okay. All right. Cool.
The teams that do that, how does it work?
Oh, Corey Moore, Colts. Okay. Hey, you're sitting out. All right. And you're good. And we'll sit you out. Let's go.
The Colts DB dropped the ball, bro. The ball went through his hands. The game was 4th and 20.
Don't justify it. Don't justify it, Wade. I'm trying. I'm trying, man. I was in love. I was in love with the quarterback. It's okay though.
The Texans were bad enough to lose that game full strength.
Yeah, and they would have lost without Cooks.
Played the game, and they were bad enough to lose it full strength. They just didn't.
Should trade Cooks.
I mean, all
trade or bench.
All Caserio had to do to fix the problem is to use his capital to move up to number 1. Apparently, he didn't think it was that serious. And so we'll see what happens at number 2. If he doesn't pick a quarterback, then I think you guys can just go ahead and say, you know what? Damn you, Caserio. It's all your fault. You tricked this off. But if you pick CJ Stroud at number 2, that tells me that, hey, both of those guys.
Here's what drives me nuts, Wade. This is what drives me nuts about it, man.
What?
Here's what pisses me off about it. I'm supposed to move on, right? There's a snowball effect to not doing it now because now Chicago, who can actually get deals done, Chicago has more ammo than you next year. So Chicago has more ammunition. If you are going to try to get a quarterback next year, they have more ammo. Now, someone could say, well, what if Justin Fields is good? If Justin Fields is good and somehow they have like a better pick than you, then they can screw you over like they did last year. And the other thing is, normally when you don't get a quarterback, you can just root for him to suck. But you can't even do that because Carolina doesn't even have the pick now. So if Bryce Young sucks, then all of a sudden Chicago has the pick, and Chicago's already screwed you over if you're trying to get a quarterback.
Man, I think you're looking a little bit too deep into this, bro.
You're damn right I'm looking deep into it.
6D chess, and everybody else is just playing 3D, bro. Like, come on.
Damn right I'm looking a little too deep into it.
Hey, at the end of the day, the Texans have an opportunity to pick a quarterback at 2. His name should be CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. If they don't pick a quarterback at 2, they need to trade back to 4, let somebody else draft a quarterback at 2, and they need to pick one of the guys I mentioned, Jalen Carter, Bijan Robinson.
Or trade with the Colts. Yeah, trade with the Colts, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Trade with the Colts. Do it. Because if you evaluate,
bit of 2 and 3, let's go.
If you evaluate CJ Stroud and say he ain't the guy, or Will Levis, he ain't the guy,
and what better team to trade him to?
Go ahead and trade him the guy that's not the guy. To me, that makes a lot of sense. But then backdoor that and pick the best guy out there. Don't just pick the solid choice.
So I'm good with Jalen Carter. You're Jalen Carter.
Like give me the solid choice at pick 12, not at pick 2 or pick 4. Give me the baller. Give me the guy that's the difference maker, the one that changes the game every time he steps on the field. That's Jalen Carter. That's Bijan Robinson.
You cannot. D'Amico's your teammate. Like, you give me some inside info on this or something. Anything?
I don't. You know me.
Man, you think he's like Shanahan-y?
I'm not an inside info type guy.
Do you think he's Shanahan-y though?
What do you mean by that?
Like, Because I remember Shanahan in 2021 where he was like getting off to afterwards, like laughing at all the talk and the dialogue and calling out media
Yeah,
types and all that.
that's
Like, I don't know if D'Amico's like just sitting back there like cracking up like Shanahan. We don't know him like that,
I
you know?
would be surprised if they didn't pick CJ Stroud #2. If they don't pick CJ Stroud #2, it's because of things that shouldn't matter. And if that's the case, that makes me nervous about what's going on over there, that things haven't changed all the way.
Well, I just think that, I don't know. I just think his experience, his and Slowick's experience is kind of wild because, and I think it's the most relevant thing in that they were there in 2017 when they passed on quarterbacks, and everyone will say, well, you should have taken Mahomes or Watson. No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's obvious. But then they were at 3 and it was a situation where we're going to take a quarterback no matter what. So I just don't know, like, I don't know what that experience means. I just know that that's a lot of similar experience to what they're in right now.
I mean, they're going to draw for the experience that they've had in the past.
You have to.
You have to. That's the only way that you.
No matter how you use it, you're
Yeah.
drawing off it some way.
Whether you follow that line of thinking or you go against the grain because you feel like you didn't like the way that went down, you're going to utilize that one way or the other. You mentioned Pat Mahomes, and I remember them talking about Pat Mahomes not being able to read coverages early on in his career. I wonder what he got on his S2 test. Did he take that test? That's something people should look up. If he graded in the,
I think he did really good.
He did really good, but he couldn't read coverages until his second, third year in the league. So what does that test mean? What does it mean? I don't know.
I don't know what the test means.
That's the thing. If that's the thing that's holding,
I told you, I don't know. I don't know what the test is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, bro. I have no idea. I don't know what an S2 test is. I have no clue.
I just think that, if he.
But I do think there's other questions than that with CJ. Like, there's other questions.
And those other questions.
I think they're on field. I don't think he has any off field. I don't know anything about him. I'm off field. Every time I've heard him, he sounds freaking like a great, great young man. Like I haven't heard anything bad about CJ.
I don't like to repeat the things that I hear, but the things that I hear that are reasons why they would not pick CJ Stroud, I think are BS. I think they should be inconsequential. There's things that it's the same line of thinking of the Jack Easterbys of the world of they wouldn't fit here because of X, Y, and Z reason, which are all BS. Like to me, if the guy can play, he's not going to be breaking the law. You might not like the people that's around him or whatever, the people that manage him and all that type of whatever. But business is business, and if you can play, you can play. Give me the best players in here. You need a quarterback. He's the second best quarterback in this draft. He would be the second best or first best quarterback in a lot of drafts. Pick the guy. If you don't like him for those reasons, those auxiliary reasons, to me, I can't get behind it. That to me doesn't make any sense. Like, bring in the best football players, coach them up, give them opportunity to succeed. To me, that's the way you have to operate as an organization.
And I don't know what the S2 tests were. I don't know what the CJ. I know there's like the S2 guy saying now that there was like leaks. Let me just put it this way. David Mulligetta is kind of gangster. So I think even if the S2 tests were real, then I think the guy might come out and say they were fake. I've never seen someone do a 180. Like, remember when Dan Orlovsky was criticizing Justin Fields and then all of a sudden he got jumped on and boom, the next day he's like a Justin Fields cheerleader. Like David Mulligetta will get you going right there. I never even thought anything of the S2 test.
Come on now.
But saying like it's all fake and stuff now all of a sudden, like it's like everybody's arguing about this. I thought it was a weird argument to begin with.
I think it's inconsequential, man. I feel like people come up with stuff and they, for whatever reasons, this type of thing just strikes me as an agenda, a narrative led issue. It's not a consequential issue that determines, is this guy going to be good at the quarterback position or not? I don't see it. And I'm sure apparently there's organizations that disagree with that, and that's great. But everybody has their opinions. To me, S2 test, I mean, it's no different to me than like the Wonderlic test as far as does it mean it's going to translate to what you do on the field? Because apparently when he plays the game of football, he sees things correctly because he gets the ball out on time. He gets the ball out accurately. He he throws every throw that you can throw on with accuracy. How can you accurately throw passes if you don't know what you're seeing? If you can't read defenses?
The argument, the counter would be that the guys are just more open because of the system and because they're so good. I mean, that's what
It's not about being more open if he's placing the ball on the run. These guys are not slowing down to catch passes. These guys are not, they're so open that they're using their whole catch radius to catch the ball. He's putting the ball in locations where only their guys can catch it. And so I think that's why I go off of like what I see. You can see receivers that are covered, and you see that quarterback put it in a spot where only his guy can get it. That's how you know it's going to work. Well, CJ's doing the same things. It's just his guys are more open. We're going to hold that against. We didn't hold that against Joe Burrow. We didn't hold. Some people tried to hold that against, Kyler Murray, and I guess it cost them bottles that they still owe me. Like people can use that excuse of the people around you are too good. So how do we know? All right, sounds good, but
I've been right on that, by the way. I'm not.
He's a passer. I don't know any dumb accurate passes. It's like an oxymoron. How are you able to get the ball out on time and accurately if you can't read defenses? If you can't, just because you're not asked to do something doesn't mean you don't have the ability to do something.
No, I agree. I actually trust the D'Amico and Slowick evaluation. Maybe that's kind of me being blinded, but I trust their evaluation on quarterbacks. So I don't even have anything to base that on. That's blind faith, I guess.
I look at it like this. Slowick was in the room when people said Trey Lance was the guy. He could have agreed with or disagreed with that, but he was in the room. So based off of that evaluation, he's going to either look at it and say, yeah, I was on the same page with those guys and it ain't looking so hot right now, so maybe I need to reevaluate what I'm doing, or I was against those guys and I would have done it this way. And so I'm going to utilize that knowledge and info going forward. But any way you slice it, these guys know what they need in order to be successful. You have to, or you'll be out of a job.
Well, the other thing is they have I equated it to like if you're raised by your dad or your mom, if they instill a philosophy in you, whether you agree or disagree, you learn from it. And for say what you want about the results or whatever. When D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick first started their NFL coaching careers in 2017, they heard Kyle Shanahan for months while that's really when you're crisscross applesauce listening to everything the damn head guy is saying because you're starting your career. Yeah. They heard him say with the number 2 pick in the draft, we're not going to take a quarterback. Now, they had different reasons. They were talking about Kirk Cousins at the time, but they had the number 2 pick. It was a third coach in 3 years. The franchise was in a rough spot. They needed a quarterback. The team sucked. It was deteriorating, etc. Whether they agree with it or not, they heard the philosophy. So whether they take, I love my dad, but I'm going to do the opposite, or they take, I'm going to instill that philosophy. They heard that philosophy. And then 4 years later, we're going to trade to number 3. This guy might not be here, but we're taking a quarterback no matter what. So they've been through the experience. They've gotten some valuable experience. However they want to use it it's probably fluid. It might not be the same situation, but they've gone through a lot of experience, very valuable experience right now. And quite frankly, I think it's awesome that they've been through that. I think that's why I kind of trust them a little bit more, not just because I'm like, oh, D'Amico Ryans is here and Bobby Slowick's here and it's a new system. It's because that's a lot of effing experience in about a half decade that I don't think Nick Caserio don't have that much experience in a lifetime, like as far as the situation that's ahead on Thursday.
Yeah, I think you make some really good points there. I do think this too, as well, is based off of the scheme that they run. They know what works at that position in that scheme. They know what traits the guys need to have in that position in that scheme. There's lots of different ways you can run it and lots of different quarterbacks that fit into it. There's a wide ranging list of guys that fit into it. And that reasoning might keep them from drafting the quarterback at 2, which I would get because they could say, you know what, I feel like Hendon Hooker would be damn good in this system, and we can get him later on in the draft. Let's get Jalen Carter right now. Let's get Bijan Robinson right now. That's what I would hope they would do. Like they would get some difference maker baller at number 2 and say, you know what, the difference between CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker ain't that much. So you know what, we'll draft Hendon Hooker later in the draft. So then we'll get some our team will be better because they've seen the Mr. Irrelevant be great. They've seen a second rounder in Garoppolo be pretty dang good at times, but not clutch. Like that's Garoppolo's deal. He just wasn't clutch. He was good. He wasn't clutch. And so, you know, you just couldn't get over the hump with a guy like that. They saw who else played in that offense with them? They had what you call it out there playing a little bit too. Trey Lance. I mean, he only played for but
CJ Bradford.
If you go back before then, you go back with Shanahan and what D'Amico is seeing as quarterback, as far as the Nick Foles of the world and the Matt Schaubs of the world, guys like that. He's seen all different types of quarterbacks be in the system and have either a decent or a damn good amount of success. So that could be a driving force for them to not pick a guy at 2, not that high. And if that's the case, I have more trust in it because they know they have to get a quarterback. Now, all that trust goes out the window if they leave the draft and they only pick a quarterback in the 6th round. Then I'm gonna be like, yo, okay, you're reaching now. You're you know, the chances of it working out just go so much lower. With that being the case, and people will be like, well, you know what? Next year they're gonna go get a quarterback. Next year the class is gonna be, bro. You can't depend on what's gonna happen next year. If you have an opportunity now to get the guy that you want, go get the guy now.
But you just said it, if you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the opportunity is not there and you try to make the opportunity that isn't there.
Right. You can't force it. It's got to be there. And I think a lot of the speculation, everything that's going on is because you're not really hearing anything from.
Because we got cabin fever.
Everybody wants to know, but nobody is being really given or fed like real information. Everything seems like 1 minute is this, next minute is that's, because they're not really talking. And so people want to speculate and want to be the first and have the right guess or the right info and the right source or whatever. But I think all of it is going to come down and be similar to what you talked about with Shanahan and Trae Young, a few years back in the whole Mac Jones situation. Everybody's talking Mac Jones. People are talking about Will Levis. People are talking about they don't like CJ Stroud. I guess if they don't, I guess. End up with Hendon Hooker, and I'm not going to trip. But if you don't end up with Hendon Hooker or CJ Stroud or even Anthony Richardson, I'm going to be very disappointed because
now you're pushing it.
Anthony Richardson.
They're passing on him twice. That's my hot prediction. I think they passed on him twice.
On Anthony Richardson?
I think he goes past 12.
I don't think he gets past 12. I think somebody's going to pick him in the top 12.
I think he's going past 12.
I think look at it. This offense is not complicated. It's one of the most plug and play offenses that you have in the league. That's why everybody does it. It's effective and so many people can fit into it and do it. So to me, if you put Anthony Richardson in the same role of what Trey Lance was in San Francisco when he first got there, all those RPOs they were doing with him, he'd be more effective in the running.
They ran him 16 times in 4 quarters. That was too much.
And I think, but Trey Lance is not the same size.
Yeah.
All of those things that you'd be like, why are you running Trey Lance so much? Like Anthony Richardson is the opposite of that. Like, yeah, run his ass. He's bigger. He's a bigger version of Jalen Hurts. And so he's not as accurate as Jalen Hurts, but you don't necessarily have to be and be successful in the league. That's something that you can build to over time. I'd have more trust in that than Will Levis. I'd have more trust in that than not picking a quarterback at all. Because now you have no hope. You have nothing that you're going to build on. What are you building on at that position?
Building on D'Amico, man, the process.
Bro.
That's what I'm building on. You asked. I didn't sit here say
D'Amico is there regardless.
What I'm building on.
D'Amico's there regardless, but if
I'm
you're
just telling you what I'm building on. Process.
You can put your hopes into.
Process players.
Davis is not walking into that huddle and you saying, all right, we finna go win this game.
Did you say Daniel Jones or did you say Davis Mills? Oh, my bad. I think my headphones. Did you say Daniel Jones or Davis Mills?
If anything, I will say this, though. If they don't get a quarterback, you still got Case Keenum there. Case has had some success in this offense. He can get you 6 or 7 wins.
You can trade with you can trade for a vet after. Who knows? It's look, the draft makes jackasses of us all. Quarterbacks make fools of us all. The draft makes jackasses of us all. That's the beauty of it. Everybody's got opinions. It is what it is.
Who's your guy to trade for as a free agent after the draft? A veteran guy.
Trey Lance.
Okay, I wouldn't be mad at that.
Trey Lance, or if the Raiders like CJ, then just go back to the Jimmy train.
But the thing about it is hold on. Say what again?
If the Raiders like CJ, which some people say they might like CJ, and just go back to the Jimmy train, they eat $6, and I've done the math. They eat $6.8 million. You cut Kirksey, and I had Texans cap help me. You rework Malik Collins, and then you give Shaq Mason an extension, and it's really just a 1-year contract. I know it says 3, it's really 1. So you basically just go back to the Jimmy train.
So let me go somewhere real quick. You mentioned the Raiders wanting CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
2 things do not line up. In one respect, this guy cannot be the guy that's so unintelligent at the quarterback position that he scored the 18th percentile.
Yeah.
Same guy
run that system. Yeah.
By Josh McDaniels and the offense that they run with the Raiders. These 2 things do not line up.
I don't know. The fans want him. I don't know if the team does. Hell, the Texans might want CJ Stroud. I don't know why you're yelling at me. You asked me.
When I hear narratives and I'm like, wait a minute, it can't be these 2 things. There's no alignment.
I can go Trey Lance.
I would be okay with that.
I can kick the tires on that. Now,
especially if you're getting him for like a second, something like that,
third, second or third next year, something like that. I don't know. The Will Levis thing kind of terrifies me. It just bothers me because it's just kind of like it's kind of stupid because he's got like early JJ Watt vibes, but I don't think he's like as much of an ass kicker as JJ Watt. Like at an extreme. I'm talking like Instagram, like shirtless selfie type vibe.
But JJ actually like did some good stuff, like some great stuff.
JJ was an all 10 caliber Big 10. It wasn't based on potential. Yes.
No, but what I'm saying is this: JJ Watt you didn't see him doing all that stuff on Instagram and social media and all that stuff until he had that pick 6 against Cincinnati in the playoff game. He wasn't that guy until after that.
Okay.
If you become that after you've actually done some stuff in the league, then you can stomach it. But Will Levis is this guy like now when he was losing 44-6 in the SEC game. Like that.
It's actually pretty weird that there's not more of a Will Levis crowd because I feel like every quarterback that I've ever covered here, from Brock Osweiler to Deshaun Watson to Davis Mills to any rookie, like has like at least like a 25% faction of support or 30%. Like the Will Levis, man, I almost want like some comfort and I can't get it from anybody. Like nobody seems to even want to like entertain it. From Clint to Seth to you, nobody.
I think everyone is in agreement that it weirds them out that this dude is on social media eating bananas whole. That's weird. Like he's, putting his head down there, biting on bananas with the skin still on it. That's weird. And you don't know how to react to that. Like, okay, this is supposed to be the leader of men. This guy's supposed to come in the huddle and get us going. And like I said, I watched this guy play in the SEC. And I'm watching highlights of like the DB from Mississippi State pick 6. Oh, it's against Will Levis. Like I don't want to see stuff like that from my number 2 overall pick. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing him blown out in SEC games. How are you having games where you're throwing like 13 for 30? Like that's not a completely accurate stat, but it's close enough. Like you can't have games where you're playing that badly and get picked number 2 in the draft. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. And you have that he just got a weird vibe around him.
Yeah, a little bit.
Quarterback can't be weird. Like and that's not. There's good weird and there's bad weird. There's like eccentric and there's Ryan Fitzpatrick where he just kind of and guys galvanize to that stuff. I don't get that vibe out of Will Levis. Like the guys, they love Will. We're gonna go to war for Will. We're gonna I don't get that vibe from him, so I don't want that here. I do not want that.
All right, well, mark that.
No, I want.
There's a lot of stuff to mark.
There's a lot of stuff to mark. It's just I don't want
Draft
that
season, baby.
I don't want it. Ugh.
All right, man. I appreciate you as always. It's always good hearing from you. I'm assuming you'll be doing something for the draft.
I will not. Columbus, Ohio for the junior national championships for my oldest daughter.
Okay.
The whole, I travel on Thursday. I'll be there that whole weekend. So I'll be watching it from my phone and maybe in the hotel room every now and again, but I will not be doing anything. I've been asked, but duty calls. Family
there you
first.
go. Columbus, Ohio. All right, man. I appreciate you, man. Hit him with the trademark before you go.
It's always real, fellas.
All right, there you go. The great Wade Smith here in the locker room. He's got the takes. He wants CJ Stroud. I love the Bijan, Jalen Carter talk too. Subscribe, like. Appreciate everyone for coming through. 2 sleeps till the draft. Smitty bringing that fire. Much love to my guy Wade. Much love to all you too. We'll get to another live tomorrow. Appreciate everyone for rolling through. Appreciate everyone for doing their thing and bringing the fire in the comments. No matter what happens, we're all in it together, though, baby.
We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck.